Aloha and welcome. In this lesson, we're going to be talking about practical insights. We're going to try learning from the WannaCry ransomware attack. So, what was the WannaCry ransomware attack? Well, as the name implies, it's a ransomware attack. It took place in 2017. It infected over 200,000 computers across 150 different countries. And this particular attack, it exploited a vulnerability that had been known for months at that point in the server message block, the SMB protocol. Uh, there was a problem with it. It allowed the remote code execution, and it also allowed the ransomware to spread across networks pretty quickly. So the vulnerability was known as Eternal Blue. It was linked to different tools that were leaked out by the US NSA. So Microsoft knew about this. They patched it months before the attack happened, but like many patches out there, people don't often patch immediately when updates become available. In a business setting, sometimes that's necessary because before you apply patches to everything, you want to make sure that you take a system like the one that's used in your office and apply the patch in a sandbox, make sure that it works well before you actually bring that out and put it on all your systems. So that's a regular thing. But for some reason, months had gone by, nobody had patched their systems, even though it had been identified and Microsoft had the patch. It wasn't. So a number of systems, over 200,000, were infected. This isn't just in the US, this is worldwide, over 150 countries. There's slightly under 200 countries in the world, so pretty much everybody got hit. So what would happen was the attackers would scan for open SMB ports, and once they found enough, once they identified enough of these unpatched systems around the world, they started attacking. So once you'd attack, you'd get access. Once you get access, you'd encrypt the critical files in the system and demand cryptocurrency payments for the decryption. So it affected a lot of different systems. Famously, in the UK, the National Health Service, the NHS, they had severe disruptions from that. People weren't able to make their medical appointments. Procedures were canceled. Emergency patients were diverted. It was pretty horrible. But yeah, all told, I think the damage was around $4 billion for this. And the $4 billion, it's not just the ransom payments, but also there's system recovery and lost productivity and everything else that goes into that calculation. But they estimate it costs about $4 billion. So the main thing that this exposed was that, in normal corporate life and people in general, you need to have good patch management. When we say patch management, we're talking about back then, every Tuesday, Microsoft would come out with what we call Patch Tuesday, where you go out and you'd update your patches. You do all your Windows updates. Now you can, set up automatic updates for night or whenever you want to do it. So it's, if you've automated the process like that, it's a lot better. But it pointed out that we need to do better patch management. Also pointed out that we had inadequate network segmentation. Network segmentation is when you can divide up a network, isolate important parts of it so that if one part goes down, not the whole thing goes down. And there's different techniques you can use for that. You can use physical switches and routers to break things up, or you can even do virtual LANs within a network. So, and also it pointed out that we didn't have sufficient monitoring of what's going on in our systems. So, the combination of all these, led to a large scale incident like this, costing $4 billion at the end of the day. So, some key takeaways, lessons that were learned. One is that we can do more network scanning. Network scanning was used. They essentially went in and scanned the network, used something to map out all the different network assets that they had. They found the ones that had vulnerabilities on it. They identified the misconfigurations, and that was a big problem. The second thing is port scanning. WannaCry exploited the open SMB ports. So we talked earlier about system hardening, and this is something you can do. You can shut down ports and services that aren't being used on a computer so that it doesn't become a vulnerability. If it's not, if you're not using it, just turn it off. So regular port scanning is a proactive security measure, and that can reduce the exploitation risks and enhances the, overall network resilience. So the last thing was system enumeration. So the WannaCry attackers, they likely leveraged tools. There's something called Nmap that you can use to find all the different systems on your network. So they're able to use that to identify the target devices, operating systems, the open ports, the configurations. And by mapping all these network assets out and uncovering the vulnerabilities, the system enumeration facilitates the identification of attack vectors and it supports the implementation of target defenses to mitigate exploitation risks. So, you can use these tools, your network scanning, your port scanning, your system enumeration. You can use, the enemy can use this to find your vulnerabilities, but you also can proactively use these things internally to check out and make sure that you don't have these vulnerabilities. So the tools that they use, you can use yourself to make sure that you're, safe. And once you do these and you find those systems that you didn't know that you had on there, whether it's shadow IT or whatnot, you find that you've got ports open from services that you didn't mean to offer, or you have, different things that, different, services or computers that you don't need on the network, you can remove those. So using the same tools that the attackers would use helps you identify that and prevent that from being a problem in the future. You identify these, you harden the systems, you shut down those extra services, and that allows less of an attack vector for the attackers to use. So the key takeaways from the WannaCry ransomware attack, number one is patch management. Make sure that you have patched up all your systems as much as you can. There's something called endpoint detection and response, and that provides real-world monitoring and automated actions to detect and isolate the threats like mass file encryption. You've got network segmentation, so you can segment your network using virtual LANs or just different network configurations, and you can do that to keep people from one of the techniques that attackers use is they'll gain access to a system and then they'll try to elevate their privileges and move laterally throughout the network. So by segmenting the network, breaking it up into different parts, they're not able to do that lateral exploitation. Another thing is email filtering. Email filtering can block phishing attempts and malicious attachments that might be coming through, and also good backups and data recovery. This is essential, not just for cybersecurity reasons, but you need good backups and data recovery practices in place so that should like if we got hit by a tsunami or something, we would be able to restore from backups. We can do the data recovery that we need. So in some situations, places might have backups, but they may be really old. So need good backup policies and data recovery policies in place. So those were the key takeaways from the WannaCry ransomware attack. But there's all kinds of great examples out there of different attacks that have happened over the years, and the lessons that we can gain from them. So anyway, if you want to explore that anymore, you can take a look online. You can Google some. You can also listen to some things like Dark Web Diaries, which has a great series on. Well, they have plenty of different stories of the different attacks that have been used over the years, and that's a really wonderful source for really good storytelling, but storytelling with respect to cybersecurity issues. So that's all for this lesson. If you have any questions, as always, feel free to reach out and I will talk to you later. Aloha.